the other game last night was the LA Clippers against the Utah Jazz. Now, this is 2 games in a row where the Clippers have just manhandled Utah. And it makes me feel like the Clippers are one of these Jekyll and Hyde teams. We saw this in the first round series against the Dallas Mavericks. It was, who can hold serve. That is, who can win at home in the series. And ultimately, the Clippers were able to do it in a Game 7. It was much too taxing for a Dallas Mavericks team that is severely flawed in its roster construction. Yes, Luka is the man. We know that. But Kristaps was not nearly as consistent as he should be for a big man. He plays around the perimeter way too much. He doesn't get down in the post and doesn't exercise his supposed strengths, that is his size, to his advantage. And so the Clippers were able to weather that storm and get through. But in the first 2 games of the second round series against the Jazz, who, by the way, are the number 1 seed in the West, it looked like, they might sweep the Clippers. Donovan Mitchell was just outstanding in those first couple of games, and Rudy Gobert is Rudy Gobert. The Ingles is Ingles. I mean, they have a very good squad. There's a reason that they were the number 1 seed in the Western Conference this year. That's because how well they're able to play together and within a system, and they shoot the heck out of the 3-pointer. But something shifted in Game 3. And as opposed to the Clippers getting leads and then blowing leads, the Clippers got a lead and then they just ran away. Same thing happened in Game 4. They got a lead and they just ran away. Now, I know the final score actually looks closer than it probably should be. Clearly, the Clippers took their foot off the gas. They actually did what the 76ers didn't, run out to a huge lead and then just kind of conserve yourself down the stretch. But this series is so interesting to me because it's hard to pick the favorite. In some ways, it being 2-2 is exactly where it should be, a race to 3, because both of these teams have issues, and most of those issues are health related for the Clippers, and it's a serious one because Kawhi Leonard banged knees with the aforementioned Joe Ingles and didn't return to the game after taking a seat with 4 minutes or so left, and they didn't need him to play. But the fact that he didn't return in a game that started to get a little bit closer might concern you a little bit. I think it's less of an issue than it probably is being made out to be. But without Kawhi Leonard, this Clippers team becomes very dependent on Paul George to be the man. And look, I like Paul George. I think he's a star. He's obviously he's gone through a lot in his career, from all the turmoil, the injury, the horrific injury on his ankle, coming back from that, and then basically hopping around for a couple teams until he found his home in Cleveland. With the Clippers in Los Angeles. But still, I don't know if he's that guy who can carry a team by himself, and that's without Kawhi Leonard. But the bigger issue in this series to me is Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell is as a player who, if you didn't watch him grow into the player that he is, you probably can't appreciate how dynamic and exciting he is to watch and to observe and to feel, so to speak. Right? He's quiet. He's not this bombastic look at me type player, and the only way he does that is on the court, and I can appreciate that. However, Donovan Mitchell missed the first game of the first round series this year because he had an ankle injury, and he got mad because he wanted to play. He came back out and just dropped fire, right? And he was amazing. And he continued that into this series with the Clippers. But in Game 3, we saw him limp off. And while he said he was okay, he said he was fine, there was no issues with his ankle, there was definitely something amiss with Donovan Mitchell, because he was not nearly the player that we've seen so far in this postseason. Yeah, I know he scored 37 points. You go look at the box score and you say, yeah, Donovan Mitchell had 37 points. Yeah, it wasn't his fault, but he was 9 of 28. I mean, 37 points on 9 of 28, that's the height of inefficiency. And so if he's not the player that he is, to me, the Clippers, even if they are a little bit banged up, have complete control over this series. But it's telling to me that the Clippers might not have the killer instinct that's necessary to push to the NBA Finals. And I say that because, look, they're the better team to me. All right, I know the Jazz are, were the number one seed, and it was telling, and it was, they had a great regular season, and Donovan Mitchell is who he is, and Rudy Gobert is Defensive Player of the Year for the third time. I mean, they have great talent, but the team with the stars, the teams with the team that can, dominate a game, and we've seen this twice, right? The Jazz have won 2. But they haven't dominated the Clippers like the Clippers have dominated the Jazz. And so to me, you have to look at what actually happens. This isn't an on-paper thing. This is what has actually happened in these games. And in these games, the Clippers go out to leads, then they falter. Right, they lose their focus. They go for a 2 for 12 stretch at a point in a game, or they miss shots at the end in clutch time, and then ultimately lose the game. But then they storm back. Same thing happened in the first round series. They started out poorly against the Dallas Mavericks, then they stormed back and evened it up, and ultimately able to win one at home. The inconsistency of the Clippers is one. It's something that makes me feel less confident that despite how good they can play, and despite the fact that they have a Kawhi Leonard who was a Finals MVP and one of the best players in the NBA, there's an inconsistency that I don't like about that team that makes me think, yeah, they might get through. But the Phoenix Suns, who are waiting from them and resting right now, Chris Paul, we know, had the shoulder injury. Devin Booker, who's been outstanding. Ayton, who's been a fantastic defender, as well as a consistent offensive performer for them. They're sitting and waiting, and they're likely going to sit and wait for a few more days because this Clippers team, with their inconsistency, might end up going to another Game 7. 2 Game 7s versus a team that fit 1 and 6 and then swept. Right, the edge, despite even on paper, if the Clippers look better, clearly is going to go to the Suns. At least I think it'll go to the Suns. The Clippers are interesting to me because they should be the better team, but their inconsistencies concern me regarding their ability to actually go far in this NBA postseason.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.